If you're a student, the memory methods will give you a boost for studying history, biology, medical terms, geography, chemistry, mathematics, poems, or anything you want to learn. It is often better to combine them to increase the efficiency of your learning. The good news is that you have at your disposal a whole arsenal of memory techniques that can really help you when you are a student. All known memory techniques can be applied for study and learning. They were designed for this purpose. Acronyms, the sentence method, the story method, the sound-alike technique, mind maps, the major system, and the memory palace method are the most used memorization techniques for study. Let's see how to apply these techniques in your learning process. After many years in which I had to learn a lot of abstract and highly diversified information, at one point I asked myself the question, how could I approach in a unitary way the memorization of any kind of information, whether it is a biology essay or a philosophy book? What are the universal steps of any learning process, and how can I adapt them to any type of material that I have to learn? The answer came when I began to study and practice memory techniques. I discovered that by combining these techniques, not only did the learning process become faster, but at the same time, the learned information remained much longer stored in my memory. Over time, I became a proactive learner, and I synthesized a series of steps that transformed my learning into a pleasant and extremely effective experience. There is a method, a formula if you will, behind any ultra-efficient learning. This great learning tool that I have named the Super Clever Advanced Learning Method, SCALM, is extremely effective because of its versatility. It can be applied to any type or amount of material you will have to remember, whether it's a one-page speech or a 300-page technical book. Whether you know it or not, you already can memorize entire books. All it takes is a little motivation and a method to facilitate your learning. The essence of the SCALM technique consists of the deconstruction, organization, and then reconstruction of the material so that it is brought into a memorable form for you. For this purpose, it contains 5 steps, and SCALM is an acronym for these steps, which are structure, chunk, associate, locate, and memorize. Let's see how to combine the memory techniques you have already learned to memorize any material. The first step of the method is to structure the information. This stage aims to create an overview of the material to be memorized, which will help us to organize the memorization process. In short, at this stage, we create a general map of what we have to do. There are cases where the author already organizes the material in the form of tables, charts, or lists, and we can use these as an overview of the information. Of course, all books also have a table of contents, but it is often difficult to use because of its text form. For this reason, the SCALM technique often uses mind maps, a structural technique we discussed earlier. Basically, in this step, we create a structure that will help us understand how the material is structured, like a tree in which we will later hang the memorable images associated with the learned things. The second step of the SCALM method is chunking, a process by which the material is broken down into organized and meaningful pieces of information. You have probably heard the saying that you eat an elephant one bite at a time, and this is the principle on which any complex human activity is based. The same principle applies to learning. At this stage, we break down the material into smaller pieces, which will be easier to associate and manipulate in our minds. In the end, we will have a lot of pieces that we then stick like leaves in the tree that is our mind map. The next step is the association. This is the core of the mental process of memorization. Association is the central element of any memory technique, and it means creating a mental connection between the abstract information you have to remember and a concrete image as a person, an object, or an animal. This easy-to-memorize image will act as a trigger to bring the other to light from the depths of your memory. It works like a shortcut that launches an application from your computer. The leaves in our tree take concrete shape, and at the end of this stage, we will have a tree full of simple yet concrete pictures, like a horse, a lion, or a king, which we will have to memorize in the next stage. Here are the memory techniques that help you transform the things you want to remember, concepts, topics, foreign words, numbers, dates, names, and so on, into easy-to-remember images. Acronyms and the sentence method for short and medium lists, the story method for longer lists, the sound-alike technique for names and difficult words, the names association technique for names, and the major system for numbers and data. Later in this lesson, I will introduce you to the rules by which you can choose these methods when you want to turn an abstract concept into a memorable image. The fourth stage is localization, which is one of the most essential aspects of orderly memorization. You've already learned in a previous chapter about the memory palace method, an ancient memory technique which is based on placing mental images along an imaginary journey that will become an orderly structure for your memories. In this stage, each branch of our tree, together with its images, will turn into an imaginary journey. The last step of the SCALM technique is the memorization of the images. If you applied the method's previous steps correctly, you created powerful images and triggers for your memories, and this step will be very simple. You simply walk again in your mind along your route, and all the words will appear in your mind's eye in the same sequence. So you have a set of memory techniques that you can use in our learning process. But how to recognize what technique should we use when memorizing different types of information? Here are the rules of association by type of materials to be learned. List of concepts. The most common type of process information that you will have to remember will be in the form of a list of concepts. As I said earlier, almost everything we have to learn can quickly turn into a list by splitting the concepts up into small pieces or chunks of information. Therefore, the result of the chunking process will most often be a list of items that you will have to memorize by applying one of these specific techniques. Acronyms can be used for small lists of up to 7 to 8 items. The sentence method is better for longer lists as compared to the acronym method because a sentence allows you to create much more elaborate mnemonic images than a single word. But this is also limited to the length of a sentence that is easily memorable, meaning lists of a maximum of 15 to 20 items. For longer lists, an appropriate method is the story technique, because a story can be much longer, but at the same time, it remains extremely memorable. Numbers and dates. Another type of information that you will have to remember will be numbers and dates. For these, I presented earlier a very efficient method called the major system. Here's how it works. Let's say you have to memorize this historical event. In 1961, Yuri Gagarin becomes the first spaceman. First, memorize the year with the major system. The 4 digits of the year, 1961, are converted into sounds, then into images. 1961 becomes TB and JT, which can be tube and jet. The action of the date, the event, becomes the 3rd image, Yuri Gagarin flying around the Earth. Now we have 3 images that only need to be linked in a memorable scene. You can imagine a cosmonaut riding a jet tube around the Earth. Let's see some other examples. In 1895, Röntgen discovered X-rays. 1895 becomes TV and pool. Imagine Röntgen throwing a TV in the pool and X-rays coming out of it. Difficult words. Another type of hard-to-remember information you will encounter in your learning process is the difficult terms. The most effective way to learn these words is by using the sound-alike method. Before making mental images of the words to which you do not have a meaning, you first create a sound-alike substitute for the word. This is a familiar word that sounds similar to the problematic word you want to remember. For example, to memorize the Latin name of badger, Taxidea taxus, you can use the sound-alike, tax idea, tax us. Then, link this image with the animal. People's names. To memorize people's names, you need to attach significance to them by translating them into concrete and easy to remember images of known people, objects, or animals. You can use the sound-alike technique to transform the name into an easy to remember image. For example, the name Mark might prompt an image of marker because the words sound similar, while bill make you think of a dollar bill. These are general rules for choosing the memory techniques to use in your associations. However, I recommend that you stay creative and flexible in choosing and using them. There are no rigid rules for choosing the right method. You just have to follow your instinct. As you gain experience in using the method, you will immediately recognize what memory technique you can apply to that chunk. Then, I recommend you consider combining 2 or more methods for memorizing more complex chunks of information. Thus, to memorize a larger paragraph, you can, for example, combine the story method with the sound-alike method to create a more memorable image. If you have to remember mixed information, like the atomic numbers and the name of the chemical elements, you can combine the major system with the sound-alike method to get a memorable image. Here's an example. The chemical element krypton has atomic number 36. For krypton, we can use the sound-alike kryptonite, while 36 in the major system is MC8, or Mach. Imagine Superman flying at Mach speed and searching for kryptonite. Now that you've learned how the SCALM technique works, let's make together a complete practical application. Here's a little history lesson about the Maya civilization to whom we will apply the 5 steps of the SCALM method. 1. Structure the information. This mind map will help us to have a clear picture of the material we have to learn. It is a handy tool, especially when we have to learn long materials such as whole books. 2. Chunk the material. I will split the material into short, manageable chunks. These can be phrases, paragraphs, or even whole chapters, depending on the size of the material you have to learn. For this example, I divided the material into 8 chunks, which will be associated in the next step with simple images. The third step of the SCALM method is to associate the chunks with simple images. The first chunk is about the 5 sciences and arts developed by the Mayans: art, architecture, mathematics, calendar, and astronomical system. To memorize the 5 sciences, I will use a simple method called the sentence method. I will take the 5 initials of these words and create a memorable sentence made up of words that start with these letters. Acrobatic actor manipulates colorful airplanes. The next chunk is about the territory where the ancient Mayans lived, which included portions of the current states: Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. Again, I will use the sentence method and I will get this sentence: many giraffes buy humble sneakers. Then we have this chunk about the Mayan cities, of which Tikal, Copan, and Rio Bec are listed. As you probably remember, the recommended method for memorizing foreign words is the sound-alike technique. With its help, the 3 city names will be transformed into easy-to-remember words. Tikal can become Takal. Copan sounds like coupon, while Rio Bec sounds like Reebok. The next chunk is about their agricultural methods: terracing, controlled burning, and underground irrigation reservoirs, and about the plants grown by them: corn, beans, squashes, and chili. All these concepts are already concrete notions, having their own images that can be used as such for storage, so I will not have to associate them with other images. Then we have this chunk about the Mayan calendar and its starting date: August 11th, year 3114 BC. Being a number, I will use a specific memory technique for numbers: the major system. August 11th, year 3114, 8-11-3114, become the consonants SV, TT, MTTR. By adding vowels, I will create the sentence, "Save that imitator." Then is presented the registration system: screenfold, books, and ceramics. These are also objects for which association is not necessary, so I will use their own images: a screenfold, book, and a ceramic pot. Next chunk is about the first use of the number 0. For this paragraph, I will use a simple method already presented in this course, the number rhyme technique, in which 0 is a hero, so I can use the image of a superhero, for example, Superman. And the last chunk is about the religion that involved human sacrifice and cannibalism, for which I will use the image of Hannibal Lecter, the serial killer who eats his victims. So we have a list of simple images that will remind us about our lesson. Now, let's put them in order. The next step of the SCAL method is locate, or put the images in a memory palace. I can use a simple memory palace such as my house, and I begin to put the images in different places along it. First image is an acrobat actor manipulating colorful airplanes. I imagine that I park my car in front of the house and I see Burt Lancaster playing with colorful paper airplanes. Second image is about many giraffes buying humble sneakers. Then I enter the kitchen where I see several giraffes wearing sneakers. Then I go to the living room, and on the table there is a commercial flyer that urges me to take all the discount coupons for Reebok shoes. There is some news on the TV about a burning terrace in which firefighters intervened using water from their tanks. On the couch in the next room, I see a basket of vegetables: corn, beans, squashes, and chili. In the bedroom, I notice that a calendar has appeared on the wall. Next to the calendar is a parrot continuously repeating "Save that imitator." In the bathroom, I noticed a screenfold book and a ceramic pot in my bathtub. Then, in the last room, I imagine Superman and Hannibal Lecter playing poker. Remember, the weirder the images, the more memorable they will be. The last step is to memorize the images, and you will know your lesson. At this stage, we do not have much to do, except to mentally travel along various locations in your memory palace, observing the pictures in order and remembering the associated topics from your history lesson. Burt Lancaster, acrobatic actor manipulating colorful airplanes. The Maya civilization was famous for its art, architecture, mathematics, calendar, and astronomical system. The giraffes wearing sneakers. The territory where the ancient Mayans lived, which included portions of the current states Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. The Take All Coupons for Reebok Shoes flyer will remind me about the most important Mayan cities, Tikal, Copan, and Rio Bec. The news on TV about a burning terrace will remind me of the Mayan agricultural methods, terracing, controlled burning, and underground irrigation reservoirs. Then, the basket of vegetables will remind me of the most cultivated plants by Mayans: corn, beans, squashes, and chilies. The calendar and the parrot repeating "Save that imitator" will remind me of the Mayan calendar and its starting date, August 11th, 3114 BC. The screenfold book and a ceramic pot from my bathtub will remind me of the Mayan system of recording events. Then I have the image of Superman reminding me of the invention of the number 0 by the Mayans, hero rhyming with 0, and Hannibal Lecter reminding me of their ritual cannibalism. Please note that the use of the association methods presented in this example is a personal and creative process. There are no rigid rules for creating your associated images, and any trick that helps you turn the concepts to be learned into images can be useful, whether you are consciously applying a certain method or simply a random image that seems right to you. By following a series of clear steps and simple rules for memorizing different types of information, the SCAL method brings a systematic approach to a task that seems difficult for all of us, memorizing hundreds of pages of horribly abstract, unattractive, and unrelated information. What is truly spectacular about the SCAL method is that it can help you memorize entire books. This doesn't mean that it offers you a miraculous solution to memorize information, as many photo reading techniques claim to do. The SCAL learning process involves a work of deconstructing, organizing, and reconstructing, recoding the material, all these stages being part of the natural process of efficient learning. In simple terms, it translates the abstract information into the alphabet of the brain, which is made up of concrete images, thus making it possible to memorize it in the long term. See you in the next lesson for another practical application of this method.